Dearest Fadi, it's great to see you again. Always great to see you. Thank you so much for making the time to have this conversation with me about the changing nature of strategic philanthropy in the Middle East and North Africa and elsewhere. Throughout much of your career, in both your words and your actions, you've been an important action and thought leader on so many of these topics. I'm particularly interested to hear your perspectives on the intersection between business and philanthropy today, and how we can strengthen that nexus here in the Middle East. For anybody that's not aware, in which case shame on you, Fadi Ghandour is one of the most acclaimed entrepreneurs in the Middle East and North Africa, and for more than 3 decades he's been inspiring and leading on this front. One of Fadi's early successes was as the founder of Aramex, which he successfully led for over 30 years, turning it into one of the world's leading logistics companies. And outside of Aramex, Fadi's been involved in many successful enterprises throughout his career, launching and helping to launch dozens of companies and nonprofits spanning a wide range of industries and sectors. He's best known today perhaps as the executive chairman of the Wamda Group, which is a comprehensive platform that invests in the ecosystem for entrepreneurship in the Middle East and North Africa. And if you're not familiar with it, I highly recommend you visit Wamda, WAMDA.com, because it's an incredible and highly impactful platform. It's no secret to those that know him that Fadi is also a very generous philanthropist who brings the same entrepreneurial spirit and rigor to his nonprofit initiatives as he does to his business endeavors. Most notably, perhaps, Fadi is the founder and chairman of Ruwad al-Tanmiya, which is a private sector-led community empowerment platform that supports vulnerable communities in a variety of ways, including in Jordan, Lebanon, Palestine, and Egypt. And that's where I'd like to begin our conversation today. Azizi Fadi, can you start by telling everyone watching this about Ruwad, its journey to date, and perhaps what you've learned along the way that you wish you knew at the outset?
Well, let me start, Badr, by thanking you for this incredibly generous introduction. I am honored, and it's such a pleasure for me to share this platform with you and talk about issues that matter to us in our lives, and how we view the future of this region, and how we view the future of the world. And you are doing incredible work at the center at Cambridge University for strategic philanthropy. It is so essential for not only for us here in the region, but it's a global issue that continues to be with us. So and I'd love that this region tags along and actually catches up to what the rest of the world, at least the developed world, has been doing. So I'll take your question on Ruwad and say that it is at the heart of strategic philanthropy. So it's 15 years old now. We're actually, this weekend, we're celebrating our 15th year with our community, unfortunately virtually, because of the situation of this COVID. But Ruwad is about what I would call the dual marginalization of certain communities. So we know the marginalized communities, so I don't need to explain to you who the marginalized are. They know themselves and we know who they are. But I also say that us in the private sector, the entrepreneurial community, if they don't participate in the development process of the countries they live in or of the communities they touch, then we have self-marginalized. So we've put ourselves outside of this development process, outside of this essential participation in the development of our communities, and left it and abdicated a role that is essential for us. You know, this whole story of the business of business is only business is as you know, the Business Roundtable in the US now finally said this doesn't work anymore. But those of us that have been practicing this, you are one of them, and many of the people you're interviewing, it is not only the business of business to do business. There is a social responsibility for business, not in the PR type of social responsibility. We live in communities, we affect them, they affect us, right? And so we cannot deny that, and we cannot say if you only pay taxes or if you only adhere to rules and regulations, then that's your social responsibility. So Ruwad, at the core of it, is how do we bring the private sector from its marginalization to marginalized communities and work with them so that we feel that we are all part of a community to see how we can do the development. So what we do there is we work with youth on character building. So we say you want to go to university and get your degree, fine. But you're going to come to this community center. We establish community centers in every marginalized area we choose. And we say over the weekends, you're going to be doing things that affect your community. So you're going to do volunteer work. You're going to give us 4 hours of volunteer work to do community work in your community to solve your own problems so that you own your own streets. So stop complaining, and let's not complain about this is not happening here, this is not happening here, government has forgotten us. Well, let's see, do we own, can we have initiatives to fix our own problems? Do we have enough knowledge to do that? Do we have the capabilities as youth and people who participate with them and help them to actually get themselves to feel that the initiative is owned by them, and this character builds effectively and gives them something that the universities don't actually give them. And so this is funded purely by private sector, and it is about really community mobilization for the youth, by the youth at the end of the day.
So I like the fact that Ruwad is an unashamedly private sector-led initiative. 7 years ago, you made a very persuasive call for something you called corporate entrepreneurship responsibility, which you're just talking about now, which is what I understand it to be really a call for private sector organizations to support the development of entrepreneurship ecosystems in their own backyards. Given that businesses from the Middle East, or do you think that businesses in the Middle East are doing enough to address the region's own social and economic challenges? And what have you found to be the most effective ways to get more local businesses and business leaders to be more deeply engaged in enhancing and meeting societal needs more directly and more perhaps authentically?
Thanks, Badr, for this question. It's a very important question. The idea of corporate entrepreneurship responsibility is to kill the concept of CSR. Right? We need to kill that because it is such a PR-ish story so that the private sector can actually feel good about itself, and it goes out and does, and places its CSR programs in its advertising and marketing departments. And that's when you know that they're really not serious about it. So the idea of corporate entrepreneurship responsibility, again, falls back to the question, how do you get the private sector actually to feel the importance of doing things in their community and their responsibility? So for me, it was, what do we do in the private sector? We're entrepreneurs. We know how to employ. We have networks. We can lobby government. We can do all sorts of things for entrepreneurs that are emerging. So I'm saying, okay, you want to do stuff, private sector, do it with entrepreneurs. This is what you know how to do. So let's not beat around the bush and find projects. Let's do work with entrepreneurs because it falls at the heart of the businesses that you do. It's not requesting you to do anything extra. Just think, what does your business have? Do you have people of knowledge that you can mentor entrepreneurs? Do you want to invest in entrepreneurs, etc.? You know the rest. I mean, I don't need to over-explain that. So it is taking really at the core of what the private sector does and telling them to do more for entrepreneurship because of the ultimate aim in our region and globally today. There is a challenge of employment. And there is a problem of unemployment and youth that are not able to find jobs, and they're graduating by the millions, right? So how best to create jobs is to create more companies. And how do you create more companies? By having entrepreneurs. And so the private sector has that responsibility to take its capabilities, its knowledge, its networks to actually help these entrepreneurs establish their businesses. Ease it, make it more easy and stuff. Do we do more? Do we do a lot of it here in the region? No. I mean, we're doing much more than when I started my business 30 years ago. But is it enough? No. It is essential. It is at the core of us having secure, stable communities and societies so that we can live in a society that cares about its well-being. And we need to step up you can actually make money by supporting entrepreneurs. So if we want to take it all the way up to doing good, doing, benefiting from it and doing good at the same time, fine and dandy, let's do that. But step up and take whatever capabilities you have and put them in the service of how do you create new jobs and new companies and new opportunities for the youth that we care about.
You're absolutely right. And every company really, and every size of company has a role to play, because fundamentally, the DNA of every business needs to be entrepreneurial. And so everyone has the opportunity to play a part and to play a role in that. And the other thing I think I might mention there is just being a little bit careful to make sure that we don't, I guess there's one type of entrepreneurship that's sometimes neglected in this part of the world. We often fall into the trap of thinking about entrepreneurship solely in terms of the young graduate building a tech company in his or her garage. And that's one type of entrepreneur, perhaps, even the modern day stereotype, which is modeled on the Silicon Valley stories. But it's not the only type. We obviously have a thriving community of micro and small businesses here in the region, which is really the backbone of our economies, owned and led by already successful entrepreneurs who've already proven that they know how to build and run successful companies, right? These are people with actual businesses, not just business plans. So I think also a big part of our ongoing effort as a community must be to support these proven micro and small businesses and business owners to scale up their operations. Because in some ways, and to the point you just made about creating jobs and opportunities, these existing businesses run by very capable entrepreneurs stand perhaps in some cases a better chance of impacting our socioeconomic landscapes and creating new productive jobs, at least in the short term and the medium term. Yeah. So I'd love to move to philanthropy. How would you describe the state of philanthropy in the Middle East in general? What have you found to be the most distinctive characteristics of charity or philanthropy in the region that people should be aware of?
Look, I mean, I'm no expert on this subject, but I'll tell you what my own observations are. So there is less strategic philanthropy and there's a lot of giving. So, and my view, and maybe the center eventually will highlight that, is how do you actually bring this giving into a strategic positioning? Because when you do it strategically, you're thinking very carefully about the impact and long-term impact, Badr. It is essential. Because at the end of the day, let's call it charity for now. If I'm doing charity because I do it from a zakah perspective, which is fantastic, or I do it because culturally I have to do it, or because philosophically I have that philosophy, the critical element is how do we get societies in need to stand on their feet and not be in need? Because and that's what strategic philanthropy is about. So it's the old concept is you get them to learn how to fish, or do you give them the fish, etc. That's a cliche, but at the end of the day, the well-being of society is about society being proud, self-empowered, owning their own destiny in various ways. So the region needs more strategic philanthropy. I don't think it is there, but there's a lot of giving. And it is about also spreading the word. It's about learning, it's about education, it's about having that discussion with these people that give and want to give, and they're genuine about their giving. Is how do you get them to think about it from a strategic perspective so that they actually impact society? I'll tell you something here, but there is also there is not much dialogue, and I think your platform could make a lot of sense for us, but you need to bring in the public sector in it also, because development, if it is not thought about from a societal perspective and people of impact holistically, then there's something missing. So it's not only about government, it's not only about social entrepreneurs, it's not only about civil society or NGOs or global impact organizations, it's about the private sector. So how do we get everyone together so holistically we address this issue? In our region, We don't have much of that. It is haphazard, once in a while, knee-jerk reaction. Let's get the private sector to talk to them. Let's do this, let's do that. Our laws and regulations are scared of nonprofits. They're restrictive sometimes for political reasons. Fine, I appreciate that. I appreciate the worry. But let's have that discussion and bring in the people of goodwill who really want to do stuff. Let's find ways to actually do this together rather than worry about what intentions are. There are a huge amount of good intentions out there that helps government solve the challenges of society so that we can all shoulder the responsibility together.
Absolutely. And let me zoom out of the region just a little bit and look perhaps more broadly at the emerging markets. The top 30 fastest growing economies last year were all in emerging markets, including, of course, a number of countries from the Middle East, but also many in Africa and South Asia. And a lot of new wealth is being generated with a new generation of strategic philanthropists beginning to emerge in a number of these countries that although they might not have a long history of institutional philanthropy, like what you've been talking about, most, if not all, have deep-rooted traditions in giving. What impact do you think that this could have on the nature and practice of strategic philanthropy over the next few decades? And how can we ensure that this new generation of philanthropists has access to the tools and knowledge that they will need to maximize their impact?
Badr, this is an essential question, not only, globally, yes, and in emerging markets, the new wealth that's being generated in the past 15 years because of the digitization of the economies and the new businesses that are popping up. You're having, I can't even calculate the wealth that is being generated today. So how, and these people
5 trillion, sorry to interrupt you. So the projection that I've seen is $5 trillion across the emerging markets, transitioning to the next generation within the next 15 to 20 years. So there's the opportunity.
It's fantastic. And you know what, these entrepreneurs are different. They're socially aware. They are much younger. They grew up in a different time. And they are seeing the challenges of society. And there are role models today, the essentiality of role models, what Bill Gates has done in his Giving Pledge initiative, and then what he is doing with his foundation. Here's the story. He built his business, he made his money, and he wants to give it away all, mostly probably in his lifetime, and he thinks about how he wants to impact the world. And I think in a variation of that model, all these young new entrepreneurs who have generated wealth that they don't know what to do with all that money anyway. I think, but you need channels, you need ways, you need to have that, again, back to the dialogue, because you will be able to solve many problems of the world, because entrepreneurs not only give away money, but they have ideas, they are creative, they are innovative, their brain thinks solutions. They don't think only problems. They are much more agile and much more, structurally built to solving problems, matching that with their wealth. So that ability of doing both, which is a new type of social impact organizations, maybe we need to call them, an entrepreneurial impact organizations that go out and solve many of the problems that we have from education to the environment, etc. All of these problems cannot be solved and will not be solved by governments alone.
Mm-hmm. So precisely to that point, one of the projects that's being considered at the Center for Strategic Philanthropy is the creation of a philanthropy accelerator that could identify what you've been talking about, but promising philanthropic initiatives across the emerging markets and help them scale impact. You obviously have a lot of experience in this area. To what extent do you believe that one can apply traditional entrepreneurial principles to the evaluation and scaling up of philanthropic initiatives and or organizations? And my question is particularly in the context of this idea for a philanthropy accelerator.
And I'm a believer that the entrepreneurial principles apply across the board, right? So, but there are variations. So the discussion always about these philanthropic initiatives, Badr, always revolves, what's the sustainability? Right, so we need to have a serious discussion of what the definition of sustainability is. So some people say, if you're not generating internal income, you're not sustainable, so don't go out in the initiative. I'm not sure I am an adherent to that concept. I am one that says, let's define what impact is. Let's define what your eventual mission and what do you really want to do, and let's see how we can actually get that funding going so that your impact matters. Because at the end of the day, it is not about financial sustainability alone in the traditional sense. It is about the impact that you want to do, and then each project by itself in that accelerator, you can define of how you're going to get forward in doing certain things. So if it is about educating people on the complete, the poorest of the poor and getting them to learn, and you can't actually generate income out of that in the traditional sense, there are people that will continuously give you from a foundation so that your impact happens. And, some of these projects also end, because if you go with a mission and you solve it, you actually have to shut down and say, I've achieved my mission and I want to do something else, or something else happens. So the accelerators are essential. There aren't enough of them. There are some in the world that are happening, but I think accelerators are essential, because that's how we show these young people who have ideas that there are people there to nurture them and help them put them together, so that we realize, is this doable? What impact does it have? And what returns are we thinking about? Is it financial returns or societal returns? Again, back to the definitions. How do we define things? How do we understand things together? So that whatever we do, it gets to a point where it achieves what we want to do at the end of the day in these social impact accelerators. It is impacting society for the well-being of society.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you said that. Inshallah, when the accelerator is created and we start working in the Middle East, inshallah, we can work together on that.
I'm on. Consider me automatically part of it.
Thank you so much. Finally, please be so kind as to share a few notable lessons that you've learned from your own experiences in philanthropy, and what advice might you give to others, to those who might be embarking on their own philanthropic journeys, or at least considering becoming more active in that space? Some key lessons, some key pitfalls, anything that comes to mind.
Badr, work in marginalized communities makes a difference for these people's lives, right? It is working for the long term. This is not about instant gratification. This is about long-term hard work. You will be fought. You will be questioned. People will question your intentions. When I first went to the first community of Ruwad, they thought I was running for elections. They said, who the heck are you? Why are you coming here? Where is your money from? Is it halal? Is this a global conspiracy to get the Palestinians to settle down in Jordan, etc.? There are certain things I won't tell you of how I was fought. We were fought, but we wanted to actually do that. And then when we showed people in these marginalized communities, and I don't blame them for being skeptical about who these, strangers with money coming there. When we started the work, when we started showing them that we're serious and we're doing stuff, they adopt you. They want to be reached out to. They are completely on board with you. They will work with you. So strategic philanthropy works. It is essential, and should be at the core of the thinking and philosophy of anybody in the private sector who actually made it and needs to do more in the society that he lives in. So that's my biggest lesson. That's where I get my satisfaction, that it actually works, but it takes time. I'll tell you, the first time I felt that Ruwad was working was 10 years after we launched it. And in talking to the community and feeling what they feel about it. And then I said, it's working. We need to do more of it. We need to go deeper in it, but it works. It does work.
Habibna Fadi, you are an inspiration to many, more than you probably know. I look forward to many more years, decades of friendship ahead, inshallah. And of course, our next in-person get-together in the near future. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Badr. It's a pleasure and an honor to be with you, and good luck with the work. It's essential work for you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.